Have you ever stood under a clear sky, watching a kite soar effortlessly in the breeze? It's mesmerizing. Watching it float, sway, almost dance through the air. The wind carries it, lifting it higher, and for a moment, it appears like the kite is truly free. But there's a deeper story behind that flight. You see, the kite doesn't rise just by the wind alone. There's something else. A thread, a connection, a tether. The kite's freedom isn't without strings. It's because of the string. Today, I want to invite you into a reflection about what freedom really means. Is it about complete independence? Or is it about balance? The harmony between holding on and letting go.
Welcome to Must I Evolve, a lecture series on spiritual growth and philosophy, presented in conjunction with No Expectations, the podcast.
Welcome to another episode of Must I Evolve, a space where ancient wisdom meets modern science, where inner work meets real-world results. I'm Andrew H. Housley, author, board-certified wellness consultant, certified holistic nutritionist, and yoga instructor with 25 years on the mat and even more in mindful observation. This podcast is a mirror, a question, and sometimes a nudge. The Zen tradition speaks often of non-attachment, but what does that really mean? How do we find peace in the space between holding tight and releasing control? Let's explore the spiritual metaphor of the kite. I'll share a Zen tale with you that sheds light on the art of balance. Many of us are drawn to the idea of freedom. The freedom to be, to express, to move through life without constraint. The kite dancing in the air seems to embody that very spirit of liberation. But here's where Zen offers a different perspective. True freedom isn't about complete independence. It's about the ability to move with the flow of life. The kite's flight only happens because it's tethered, grounded by a thread. In Zen, we call this concept right attachment. It's the understanding that we must remain connected to our intentions, our purpose, and the world around us. But we must also understand when to loosen our grip, when to surrender, and when to adjust. Consider the tale of the two arrows. A Zen master walking with his disciple when they were suddenly struck by an arrow. The disciple in shock began to cry out in pain. The Zen master calmly asked, "Why do you suffer?" "Because the arrow hurts," the disciple said. "No," the master replied. "The first arrow is the one that had struck you. The second arrow is the one that you shoot into your own heart as you cling to that pain. Let go of the second arrow and you will be free." In the same way, the kite cannot fly without the wind, but if we are too rigid, too tightly wound, we risk snapping the string. Zen teaches us that freedom comes not by severing all ties, but by letting go of what no longer serves us and finding peace with the tether we hold. Now let's take a moment to pause and reflect. We all have a string, something that tethers us. It could be an old belief, a relationship, a fear, or even an identity that no longer fits us. But much like the kite, we sometimes believe that we need to hold on tightly to these things to stay aloft. But what if these tethers are not our freedom, but our burdens? What if our fear of letting go is what keeps us stuck? In Zen practice, we talk about the concept of non-attachment. This doesn't mean abandoning what you care about or being indifferent. It means realizing that we are not defined by our attachments. They don't define our worth, our purpose, or even our essence. A Zen story about this. A monk came to his master and said, "Master, I have been carrying this heavy burden of guilt for years. How can I release it?" The master looked at the monk and asked, "Do you know what happens when a bird flies from a tree?" The monk replied, "The bird simply takes flight and the branch is left behind." The master smiled. Just as the bird leaves the branch, you can leave your burden. It's not about letting go of what you carry. It's about knowing that you are not bound to it. Like that monk, we may feel burdened by our attachments. But what if letting go simply means recognizing that we are not the weight we carry? Just as the kite rises, not resisting the string, but by learning to glide with it. Perhaps we rise by gently loosening our hold too. So if the kite represents both freedom and attachment, how do we strike a balance? How do we know when to release and when to hold on? Zen teaches us that the answer lies in the act of surrendering to the moment, not as passive resignation, but as active trust. Master Suzuki once said, "In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, but in the expert's, there are few." It's one of my favorite quotes. This teaches us the importance of being open to life as it comes, without rigid expectation or attachment. In Zen, we embrace the idea of the middle way, the path between two extremes. The kite caught between the pull of the wind and the tension of the string embodies this balance perfectly. You see, releasing control doesn't mean abandoning the kite to the wind. It means allowing it to follow the current of life, making adjustments as it flows. If the kite is jerked, the handler doesn't panic. They simply shift the string, adjust the tension, and trust the kite to find its course. It's a dance of trust. And that's the tricky bit. As we reflect on this metaphor of the kite, we realize that its freedom is not about cutting the string. It's about trust. Trust that even with the tether, it can rise, move, and adapt. It's in the relationship between holding and letting go. In the quiet spaces of Zen, we learn to embrace both sides, to be connected without clinging, to hold lightly without fear of falling. The art of living, like the art of kite flying, is knowing when to adjust, when to release, and when to trust the wind. So as you go forward today, ask yourself, what are you holding on to, perhaps too tightly? What do you do to need to trust, release, and let flow? How can you dance with life rather than trying to control it? Just like the kite, the sky is not the limit. The limit is only what we hold on to and how we hold it. Thanks for listening to Must I Evolve? Remember, you don't have to be perfect, you just have to be patient. That's the real practice. As for your next evolution, it doesn't live in who you should become, it lives in what already grows within you. Until next time, keep evolving, quietly, consistently, and always with no expectations.